Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at goracing.ie.
All right, a very good afternoon to you if you're watching us live, as we are every Friday afternoon, right, broadcasting across all of our social channels. That's youtube.com/Off the Ball. The best place to get us nowadays is actually on our shiny new website, offtheball.com. You just hit the watch when we have anything going live, and it pops up in a nice window for you, and the stream never breaks, and it's absolutely perfect. Or, of course, you can always get us on Facebook or Twitter as well. Our special guest for Friday Night Racing this week is Andrew McNamara. You're very welcome. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm very well.
I'm sorry for inflicting Johnny Ward in your car trip to Dundalk. Johnny was like, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it in this Friday. I have a runner in Dundalk. And then it just turns out that you also have a runner in Dundalk.
Also have a runner, so very lucky for Johnny that I drive.
Serendipity.
I'm absolutely delighted, yeah. I had a lift home sorted, but the train times were not very favourable, and they're starting off early enough Dundalk at the moment, like 5 o'clock, so I was going to miss 3 races anyway.
Do you not drive as like an environmental thing, or is it just couldn't be arsed?
No, it's a bit of both, but mainly the latter. It's not that, actually. I object to that. No, so when I was living in the country, I used to drive my father's car on the provisional licence, moved to Dublin, didn't need a car. And then I was going out with a girl, and her parents kind of gave her a car, and she said, "You're learning to drive now." So I went and did a driving lesson, and the guy who gave me the driving lesson had a quite profound wig, which made me... It was very hard to concentrate because it was really
Where's
obvious.
Where's the story going?
But I was like, anyway, grand, and it was the first time I'd ever driven in the city, but I thought it was fine. Now I was clutching a lot, which would have been the... Anyway.
Yeah.
But he says, you obviously have your driver's license. I said, no, I don't have a driver's license. That's why I'm doing lessons. He said, well, you need a driver's license to actually do lessons. So I just gave up.
You need a provisional to do lessons?
Yeah, so I think I've exhausted my provisionals from back when I was younger. I think I had 3 provisionals. Yeah. So then I broke up with the girl, and the car was gone, she was gone, and I'm still not driving. But I do care about the environment, so... I don't actually. I'm happy that I don't drive, in the sense that I think climate change is going to screw us all over.
Yes.
And even in racing now, it's the most important thing about racing, in that it's screwed over this season for everyone. And climate change is ridiculous. And I think, like, I was at Holt last Sunday, and it was maybe 12 degrees.
It was weird.
It's ridiculous. People were walking in T-shirts.
Yeah.
And the bees were seen in Dublin in late December.
Yeah.
And they're on about watering now, potentially, for Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival, which to me is utterly insane. So last year we had the beast from the east, we had a drought, we had a prolonged heat wave, and we had no rain at all really in winter, or no cold weather.
Two snows.
Yeah, and that wasn't long after an extreme storm in late 2017. I think we're screwed, and ultimately it'll be poor people who suffer most in other countries.
There you go. Welcome to the show. This is what it's always like.
It's true.
I thought this was a sports show.
At least we go to Dundalk tonight. It's all weather,
Yeah.
But it must be deeply frustrating for jumps trainers,
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm starting out. The better and more expensive national hunt horses are winter horses. So because it's maybe a cheaper market, I've probably invested more in summer horses. So
you're suited by it, actually.
At the moment, I'm not sitting there with a load of horses waiting to run. They can't go on it. Now we have a runner Sunday who does want to cut in the ground. It might bother him. But in general, I'm not sitting like Gordon Elliott and Willie Mullins with these horses that their owners have spent fortunes on, and they're riding out every day of the week, but the ground is too quick for them to run.
Did you see the race was at Naas on Sunday, Battle Over Dying? Watching that race, it's great being able to watch racing in HD now at home, and it does help in terms of watching. I didn't think he looked at all at home on the ground, and this was in mid-January, and I'd say he was only getting away with it. And Jack Kennedy said after, and that's a horse who's worth so much money, and this is a grade 1, but I'd say Connections were weighing up whether they'd even run it, because it's quick ground. It's pretty much summer ground,
Can I just ask on that, right? So they wouldn't run because it doesn't suit him, or they wouldn't run because he might get injured?
He might get injured.
Risk of injury, yeah.
Right.
They're not overly worried if he gets beaten. They're never going to sell him again. His value, monetary value, doesn't matter that much to them, and the experience will stand him in good stead. But yeah, they'd be afraid. He would be a very, very big horse. I don't know exactly what height, but he's probably well over 17 hands. He's big, he'd weigh a lot, and when he's hitting quicker ground, he could do an injury to himself.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall as well.
So literally, that's exactly what it is. They've looked, and they would know him from maybe him coming off hard ground in the past, and
it's not even that, just the way he gallops at home and everything about him, his previous form.
Okay.
He'd run in a maiden hurdle. I was there, I think, was it Punchestown? Again, there wasn't much pressure on him then, because it was he'd won a bumper at Punchestown, then he won his maiden hurdle at Navan, but they were sort of, they were easy going races. Now he's put into a grade 1, and they're jumping quick, and everything's going that bit faster, and you could tell that he was sort of all at sea, like in terms of being a chaser for one thing, but also probably just wanting softer ground because he's so big.
Yeah.
And he won, but I'd say they've slight reservations about. I think they're happy that Cheltenham will probably be softer in March than Naas was in January, and that's just evinces the ridiculous year we've had. Ridiculous. Like it's possible the whole year will go by, the whole season will go by in National Hunt racing without any proper winter ground. The whole season in Ireland.
Is this something that will change the strategy of the big buyers? Like, you look at this and think 3, 5, 7 years. The pace of climate change is escalating so quickly that actually you are better off buying summer horses now and running them in winter.
I don't know if. We don't know how much of this winter is climate change related, and it's highly unlikely that next year it's going to be as dry as it was this year or the year after it's going to be. I think this year is a bit of a freak year.
Been a lot of freak years recently.
That's the problem. That is the problem.
Last year was a very, very wet year. It's climate change. It's not climate drying. If it is happening at this extraordinary rate, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have drier and drier winters. So I don't think anybody's going to say, "Geez, this winter was very dry. We'll never again buy
heavy ground horses."
Heavy ground horses.
Yeah. Okay. What's your you both have runners in Dundalk tonight? Yeah. What's yours like?
Mulzam, he's running in the first division of the Apprentice Handicap, which is 7:30. I couldn't see him beaten if he were drawn lower, and that sounds like a cop-out, but it's an apprentice race. He's drawn 12, and as Andy will explain, a lot can go wrong if you're trying to get to the front from a high draw, even at Dundalk, and he's been drawn 12 or higher for his last 3 races, which is very, very unfortunate, and he's also in the tougher division, but he's bang there. He just needs things to go a little bit right in the early stages. If he gets a freebie up front, I can't see him beaten, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
What trippy?
7.
Yeah, 7's a bit tricky. You've less time in Dundalk before the bend over 7, so it does make it a bit harder with a bad draw.
So you kind of need to cut in basically to run the shortest race.
Yeah.
Exactly, and just to get to the front because that suits him. But with all due respect to the apprentices, it's probably a bit more likely that one of them will go off a bit harder because they're inexperienced. They're getting to know Dundalk, so that's the problem. I don't know how that's going to pan out.
Okay, and when you have horses in places like Dundalk, is that just to run them, or what part of the season are you thinking? Okay, I need to get a run here. How do you pick deciding that this horse is going to go tonight in Dundalk, for example?
Just starting out in training, so we've different horses for different things. So the horse we have tonight is a flatbred horse, so probably have slightly more jumpers than flat horses, but we do have flat horses as well. And this horse will hopefully be sold. So Dundalk's probably as good a place as any. Well, it's not as good a place as the Curragh to go and run well and get one sold, but he's at a time when it suits him to run. He probably would be more suited to racing on grass, but this will be a good opportunity. If he goes and shows himself well, we might get him showed out.
And he's drawn in 13.
Okay.
13 over a mile isn't as big of an issue, but he's first time out. And funny, his sire Casamento, I remember he was very, very popular initially because he was by Shamardell. Shamardell was going great, and then he went completely out of favour, more or less. I think he went to Denmark or something like that.
Someplace in Northern Europe, anyway.
And often, as happens, then, like, actually quite good horses did come along the line. I think Princess Yeza, Gavin Cromwell's Group 2 winner, is by him, and he seems to get horses that stay well, but you obviously think he has a bit of ability anyway.
Yeah, Casamento, I think, is back in Ireland, actually.
Is he back in Ireland?
To stand as a jump horse, so I believe.
Yeah. Which you wouldn't expect, like, a Shamardell, he won the Racing Post, or I think he won the Racing Post. Yeah.
And yeah, this one, he's a good pedigree, this horse. He's a Moidler pedigree, and there's a bit of dual purpose in there, but plenty of black type in there. And he's a lovely horse. He is a type of horse that mightn't be very sharp out of the stalls, which is a worry when you're drawing 13 as well. So the whole thing could be gone up in smoke at the start. But I think he's a very good horse, so I will be hoping he's 25 or 33 to 1 there if anyone wants to.
I think it's 66 if you want to go looking for him.
Wouldn't be putting anybody off at that kind of price. He'd be definitely value.
That part of the sport where you try and use your skill as a trainer for yourself to kind of see the whole process through. It's the highest risk, obviously, but it's obviously the highest reward. It must be the most fulfilling part when it works.
What do you mean by that?
You get a horse, you buy it, you train it, and you sell it. And you're like, that's the business now. And it's when you see it come to fruition, it's for yourself as opposed to just training for somebody else, I suppose. Yeah,
there would be huge satisfaction in that, but really, I suppose I'd get a kick out of training a winner for somebody else as much as I would for myself, but I suppose it's more of a financial thing when you're buying a horse to train it and sell it on. You do the business needs to make money to keep going, and this fella, hopefully, he's one that has plenty of ability and could be sold to make a few quid and pay for a few others that didn't get that far.
Did that side of the business come naturally enough to you? I mean, obviously you grew up steeped in racing and had a storied career as a jockey, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes' time, but it's not just being a sportsman when you're a trainer, you're a businessman, and a lot of people, I suspect, want to do one side of these two things, like run the business and make sure that's okay, and have to do the training. Getting that balance right is tricky. Which part of it do you like the most, or is it okay?
I think everybody in racing prefers the horses to the sitting inside in the office and paying wages and sending out invoices and things like that, but both have to be done. Hopefully it'll get big enough where we'll get a secretary to do all that work for us. But and then there's obviously the business side of it, isn't buying and selling horses. I do enjoy that as well. I probably always would have been doing a bit of that while I was riding.
Okay.
Not on a big scale, but would have had a horse here and there. And
with the intention of becoming a trainer and seeing how that worked, or just like it seemed like a natural thing to do. I like the look of that horse. I could buy that horse. I can sell that horse on.
A little bit of both. I suppose more so, definitely with an eye to becoming a trainer and getting a bit of experience, and also I suppose it's a way to make a few quid.
Yeah. You enjoy it, like?
I do, yeah, definitely.
There's chess involved in understanding the bloodlines and what's going to work where and when.
There's understanding bloodlines, there's understanding the physicality of horses, and then there's a lot of luck as well. Yeah, and understanding markets as well. So some people are, where I might fall down a little bit, is understanding the markets of selling a horse. So that there's...
Where do you improve in that, or why have you fallen back in that?
I suppose that's a lack of experience. I might be selling a horse a year or something, a horse that's had a bit of form and done something, whereas there are people who are in the breeze up business or in the store business or the pin hooking.
It's a selling operation.
They just understand the market. They know every person that's there to buy a horse. They know how much those people have to spend. They know how much to push them and everything.
Where's your market now then? Are you looking to sell a good horse to Hong Kong? Are you looking to sell...
I suppose if you have a horse good enough to sell, then you look where to sell it.
That horse wins first time out tonight, for argument's sake. Where would that go? Potentially.
If he won tonight, he could potentially go anywhere. I would probably see him as a dual purpose horse. I think he's a bit of scope about him. There's a bit of jumping in the family, and he'd definitely stay a trip. He's a lovely attitude and he settles well. So I think he could make a lovely hurdler down the line, maybe a 3-year-old hurdler in the autumn. But if he won a mile maiden first time out in the flat, there's a market for that anywhere in the world.
Is the market changing in the sense of where horses are going nowadays? You obviously have Qatari money came in. You'd have a lot of horses maybe that would go to Dubai. You have Hong Kong, even horses going to America as well. It probably has changed a bit over the last few years.
Again, that wouldn't necessarily be my forte, but I would say from the flat, the world is your oyster basically. There's horses going everywhere in the world at every different level. They're going to Russia, to South Korea, to America. They're going everywhere. And but jump racing, it's probably to England, within Ireland.
It's funny how much it's changed though, because the horses going to England, which was when I started following racing, most of the good horses went to England, and that's where the big owners were. But for whatever reason, there are probably a few circumstances, but particularly I think prize money is pretty poor in Britain, and Gigginstown becoming as big as they were, and deciding that all of the horses that Michael O'Leary owns, literally every single one, will be trained in Ireland. And that's made a huge difference to racing over here, in that we're not exporting everything like our footballers have been, where a lot of the horses staying here. And it's Gigginstown. JP, I was looking at the stats. JP has had, I think, 25 different trainers in Britain this year, and about 52 in Ireland. So it's roughly 2 to 1. Whereas every Gigginstown horse is being trained here, and that has just made it so competitive. And that Battle Over Dying, for example, he would have been bought for huge money to stay in Ireland.
Yeah. So it makes a big difference. But does that mean that you're automatically tempted towards the flat more than the jumps, even though it seems like the jumps is your first love? Just that the business is so big there. If you've 2 or 3 super horses who are flat superstars, that's the business set for life. Whereas if you've 2 or 3 great jumps, it's great, well done. Where are the next 3 or 4 big jumping horses coming from?
Do you mean the value of the flat horses?
Just where the business is coming from.
Gigginstown as well,
Yeah, to be honest, you're talking about the value of superstar flat horses. I'm not going to go to the sales and buy a superstar flat horse. Not on...
But you might sell one, no?
No, because
Potentially.
Well,
Small chance.
Down the road, maybe when you get into, but to buy those horses, they rarely come up for sale and they cost a lot of money.
Fair enough. Yeah. So you can't get on the carousel.
yes.
But it's harder as a jump trainer to compete now than I would argue than a flat trainer, because maiden hurdles are more or less next to unwinnable. Like Jigsaw might have 5 runners in a maiden hurdle; they're all worth a fair bit of money. Whereas on the flat, and you've seen it this year with say Jessica Harrington, Ken Condon, Patrick Prendergast, there's maybe more of a spread.
This year was a good spread in the flat.
Yeah, that's not going to always happen. But
and the jumping has gone the opposite way. Whereas before, Tom, Dick and Harry had the possibility of having a Grade 1 winner. This year, there would be very, very few runners in Grade 1s with any realistic chance that aren't trained by
Willie or Gordon.
About 5 or 6 trainers. Yeah. But then things always change. So the idea is you go and get a decent reputation for yourself, and then you end up getting one of those owners. And
happy days.
You're the one that everyone's trying to steal the horses from.
Okay, well, I'm glad that we're getting in on the ground floor with that. Okay, this show is going on the road. We are going to be previewing the Dublin Racing Festival from the Sugar Club on Thursday, the 24th of January. We'll have an all-star lineup from the world of racing and beyond, including Niall Quinn, Nicky English, Davy Russell, Rachel Blackmore, Patrick Mullins, alongside Kevin Kilban, John Duggan, and it says here Johnny Ward.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and looking forward to the Dublin Racing Festival.
There's always one.
Yeah, but
we're going to be previewing a massive racing weekend, obviously, on the show at that night, which is taking place at Leopardstown Racecourse on the 2nd and 3rd of February. Top jockeys and trainers are going to be competing in 14 races, 8 Grade 1s, and €1.8 million in prize money. This show is an exclusive off-air event, so the only way to enjoy it is to be there on the night. Go to offtheball.com/events now to get your tickets. They are free, but you've got to register, print them off, or have them downloaded onto your smartphone on the night. And remember, this event is for over 18s only. It's all thanks to the Dublin Racing Festival at Leopardstown Racecourse on September the 2nd and Sunday the 3rd of February. You can get your tickets for the festival now at leopardstown.com. I want to play you this, Andrew, because we were just watching it in the office today. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's beef or salmon coming from the depths of hell, I believe the commentator from the 4x100 would describe it. Have a look at this.
As they come down now towards the final fence, the listener out in front, beef or salmon, trying hard to cut down the deficit, and over the last it's the listener from beef or salmon who's still trying to make ground and is closing with every stride as they race inside the last 200 yards. It's the listener. Beef or salmon is still cutting down the lead, but the listener has got 150 yards to go. Beef or salmon putting in a tremendous late bid the inside, and beef or salmon is going to get up. Beef or salmon is going to win.
As improbable as that looked when he said there was 200 yards to go, as you well know, when the horse is getting tired in a 3-mile chase, 200 yards is a long, long way. It's 2 football pitches, and thankfully he had enough.
Yeah, that was as good a kick as I ever got out of anything on a horse. It probably, if you went back further, it probably looked even more improbable before the turn in.
The commentator was basically like,
trying hard. But
how am I going to fill the next minute of this? Well, you know, But what do you have for dinner?
Beef or salmon was probably the most intelligent horse I ever came across, which sounds funny, but they are like humans. You get every type of a horse and every type of intelligence, and a very nice horse, and you get a asshole and you get everything. But beef or salmon was really, really clever, really personable and everything. And when we jumped the second last in Leopardstown, which is a good long way out, you know, I myself was niggling him along and thought this is all over, and the listeners half a field in front of us. But I could just feel by him, he had the head sideways and he was gripping at the bit, and I said, this fella doesn't think it's over, you know, he's still sticking the head down and giving it a go, so I might as well go with him. And as I rounded the bend, I hit him a couple of slaps and he kept picking up. And I met Pat Flynn, the trainer, about a week or two afterwards, and he said to me, when you were turning in, he said, I was up in the stands, I was thinking, what a prick that fella is. Look at him beating the shite out of that old horse. He says, like, wouldn't he leave him alone? The race is over. And that's probably what it did look like, you know, that this horse no chance. But he just kept grinding. And eventually, 100 yards to go, the listener caved in and packed it in. And the listener's a fabulous horse as well. I was lucky enough to ride him afterwards.
Oh, right.
But that was a really special day because the listener had beaten us previously.
At the Lexus at Christmas.
Yeah, and then we came in, and beef or salmon was, while now there's loads of, as we were just talking about, like there's so much quality of horses in Ireland. You go to the Cheltenham Festival, and last year, for the first time ever, there were more Irish winners than English winners, and we win Gold Cups and Champion Chases and things, whereas that was only kind of around the beginning of it at that time.
Yeah.
And there weren't these superstars, and beef or salmon was the kind of Irish superstar. Now, I got to ride him at the end of his career. It was Paul Carberry and Timmy Murphy before that, but he was a bit of a national hero in racing terms.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So when you'd ride him any day, not that day, any other day, there'd be people rushing around to take photos of him and rushing around to pat him and everything. So there was definitely an our horse feel to him. And when he came in after, the reception was absolutely phenomenal.
We need more stories like that. Unfortunately, as Andrew was alluding to there, it's become very concentrated in jumps racing. And B for Salmon, his first ever chase run was in a senior grade 2 chase, the Clonmel Oil, which was utterly mad if you asked any other trainer nearly. But Michael Horrigan had faith in him and he won easily under Paul Carberry that day. He went to the Gold Cup as a novice. He was 9-2 second favourite against Best Mate and he fell at maybe the 4th. He never really acted around Cheltenham. But he'd a name, B for Salmon, that kind of people, that resonated a bit.
Yeah.
His owner was kind of a northern man but quite unassuming, and he was trained by Michael Horrigan, who wouldn't have been a massive trainer, wouldn't have had a huge amount of firepower, and he just had that way of racing, and people really warmed to him. And unfortunately it's harder to warm to the horses that have the mega owners and the mega stables.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I just find that,
I mean,
like Denoli and B for Salmon.
There's no underdog aspect to it
that
Irish people really love. Was there pressure getting on top of a horse that everybody loves like that? Like, is there pressure turning the bend going, okay, this, I'm not, it's not a disgrace, but like, you've been well beaten by the listener here. The listener's going to stroll on here to a 40-length win. And you're like, oh my God.
No, I wouldn't say particularly pressure, I suppose. When you're riding, you're always riding to win, I suppose, is your main objective. But you want to please your owner and your trainer so that you get back on the horse the next day. No, I wouldn't say there was necessarily pressure with the likes of B for Salmon. He was probably a horse who was past his best when I got on him and still managed to have a couple of days like that. He won the race in the north as well, beating more of attrition the same season. So that was a great kick as well. But no, he was a thrill to ride. He was very easy to ride.
Yeah. As he was saying as well, he was very popular because we didn't have Gold Cup horses at that time, and Best Mate was winning all around him.
Yeah.
And it was great to have an upstart that might take him on.
Best Mate was totally unstoppable. Your career as a jockey was sensational. Like, you had endless success, really.
I wouldn't have thought that, to be honest.
I
would have enjoyed a bit more somewhere along there.
But the figures are really good. Like,
considering how tall you are, you did quite well now.
Yeah, I probably did well for my height. I did always struggle with my weight, so I didn't initially.
All of the interviews that I watched for this, you were like, yeah, I was allowed on that horse because they let me go a pound over, or I wasn't going to do that one because I wasn't going to make the weight. So it's just obviously a constant battle.
I was too big for it, to be perfectly honest. So I didn't, when I left school, I went to college because I thought I was too heavy to be a jockey. And then after a while, I wasn't getting much heavier. I said, I'll go and give this a go. And luckily, it worked out very well. I had a great time and I absolutely loved it. And, I ended up leaving realistically because of my weight. I probably was getting a bit worse at riding because physically it was taking a toll on me, and I didn't have a good job at the time and probably wasn't riding as well as I had been. So, I stopped riding, I think, at 32, which is very young for a jump jockey. But looking back on it, I probably should have stopped at 30.
The official line was you had a back injury at that time. Was that just like a chronic thing that wasn't clearing up, or was that?
It was more back pain, I suppose, and things. But that would have been a weight issue as well,
Yeah.
Every day I'd have gone racing, I'd have been losing weight to some extent.
What's that lifestyle, that part of the lifestyle, like for somebody who is tall and is doing this for the, because you're competitive and you want to do it and it's your job at the time, but at the same time, like, you can't have been much crack to be around.
No, I don't think I'd have left it bother me too much. As in, it might have bothered me, but I didn't like to put that on other people. But look, it's a lifestyle you get into. Looking back on it, you think it's a bit nuts, but when you're in it, it's what you do. So I'd have been going riding out places, rushing to find a sauna somewhere on the way to the races if there wasn't one at the race course to lose a few pounds. And I probably spent 10 years to some extent dehydrated for the entire 10 years. But look, it doesn't have any ill effects on me, and I've come out of it perfectly well, and it was always my dream to be a jockey, so I got to live that.
Yeah.
Would you not have gone down the amateur route then after? Or even now, just so you could ride the odd bumper horse. You could ride. You could still ride sparingly, like for we'll say 12 stone or whatever.
No, to be honest, it wouldn't really interest me. Now this is in no disrespect to there's amateurs there who are absolutely brilliant, and the likes of Derek O'Connor and Jamie Codd are
JT back in the day,
and John Thomas and Robbie the same. I kind of always wanted to give the professionalism a go, and so that was always one for me. I think if I'd have gone back at this stage, it'd be a bit like, okay, the last couple of years I was riding, I wasn't riding too many grade 1s and things, but when you had ridden in those, and you'd ridden the Cheltenhams and the big races at all these places, to go back riding in just the bumper of a Thursday
like the footballer kind of going down the divisions nearly, like just...
Yeah, which didn't interest me, so... No.
Yeah. You'd 15 grade 1s, the 2006 Cheltenham Champion Chase on New Mill, the Irish Gold Cup, which we saw there, the Irish Champion Hurdle and Sizing Europe, the Irish Grand National on Blue Sea Cracker. That's a great career.
Yeah, very much enjoyed it, yeah.
Were you 20 when you turned pro then? Because you've done 2 years of college, or were you early in college?
I'd say about 20, yeah.
Yeah, which is late enough, right?
Yeah, it is late enough, yeah. I was riding kind of unsuccessfully as an amateur.
Right.
And then when I left, people, I suppose, realised I was taking it a bit more seriously, and I left at Christmas time. I think walked out of college one day and went home and told my mother I was leaving, and she kind of talked me around to going back. So I just went in and lived in Castletroy in Limerick for another couple of months, but never actually went to another lecture. And so then when people kind of realised I was taking it a bit more seriously, just overnight it took off. I started riding doubles and trebles at the point to points every weekend.
Right.
Then the end of that season I turned professional.
Must have been a point in your teenage years though where you thought, I could do this. And there must also have been a point in your teenage years where you were a bit heartbroken you can't do it full-time professionally.
Yeah, I remember being about 14, I was at the races one day, I realised I was already heavier than Norman Williamson, which was a bit of...
He wasn't even that small.
So anyway, I always in my head thought I was too big for it as a kid.
Yeah.
Because I was...
Well, is that part of the motivation to get you into the sauna then? The fact that like you're told constantly, and you've told yourself that you can't do it, that you're proving yourself wrong and you're proving everybody else wrong, and that... Because I can't... I don't think any of us who don't do it can understand the commitment that it requires to go without food and without water and to shrivel yourself down, to get on a horse that, you know, may or may not win, and more often than not, like 9 times out of 10 doesn't win, and if you're winning 1 time out of 10, you're doing great.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did anything to prove anybody else wrong. You know, I don't have that big a chip on my shoulder. So yeah, it was always I just wanted to do it, and I always wanted to see if I could be good enough and how far I could go. So yeah, it was always for me. It's fairly...
Like Robbie went down the more logical route, which is riding amateur, where you wouldn't be slaving weight-wise.
Yeah, that's what's Robbie's bigger again, though.
Yeah, he is, but you were struggling. What height are you? Like 5'11", maybe?
And the full 6, yeah.
6 foot, like to be a professional jockey. What was McCoy, like 5'10", maybe?
Probably, yeah.
For 6 foot being a professional jockey, that just does not exist. Like really, there's no one out there.
Someone like McCoy would have been much the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have been.
But you're going a decade being dehydrated and not eating properly, which is mad, because you always think there's so much about science in sport now, you have to be in such good shape to perform, but jockeys are almost like exactly the opposite in ways where they're wasting just to make weight, and they're clearly not at their optimum condition.
Yeah.
And I find that's one of the real anomalies of horse racing, is that you have to make the weight, and after that you just have to make the weight, and how you are after that is kind of almost secondary, because I can't see how you're at full tilt if you're not eating or...
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of days I wouldn't have been, I'm sure. And one of the things I didn't notice is maybe concentration mightn't have been perfect, and you'd been a bit weaker in a finish, and hopefully the horse would help you out.
Yeah.
So there were days like that. You mentioned Blue Sea Cracker there.
Yeah.
That was a day I did a particularly lightweight, and the Nationals 3 miles 5, and definitely the finish of that race I was gone weak on that, but luckily...
Do you remember it?
I remember it, yeah, but luckily she had a bit in hand that she helped me out. I think I dropped my stick jump in the last, but she was able to carry me over the line anyway, luckily.
You've had 15 grade 1s, have you?
I think so, yeah.
So can you, without naming them now, can you remember how many individual horses? I can think of 3 off the top of my head, but I'm...
There wouldn't have been many. Say like Tranquil Sea would have won 2.
Without naming them.
Newmill would have won 2. High Cloy would have won 3 maybe. Yeah. But after that, I'd say they'd all be 1s. Oh, Beef Salmon won 2.
Yeah. So it's like 15 grade 1s is a hell of an achievement. Like jockeys struggle to do that nowadays.
Yeah. And you mentioned Robbie there. Robbie's fall must have had a profound effect on your family and everybody in racing, really. How did you deal with that? How do you come to terms with something like that when you're in the race that the accident happens?
Yeah. On the day, actually, the doctors came to me after the race and they said he was after getting a serious fall, and they told me, you don't have to continue riding if you don't want to, and which is a bit foolish in hindsight, but I actually said I prefer to keep riding, because if I stop, everyone at home will be getting very worried and everything. So I didn't really realise how serious it was. Yeah. And there wasn't anything you can do anyway if he's gone off to hospital. So I continued riding for the day, and I think I had a winner or 2, and so then I went straight to the hospital in Wexford, and it was only then I kind of realised how serious the situation was. So it definitely does have a big effect on everybody, and it, not consciously, but probably to some respect, it played some bit of a role in my stopping riding. Because, John Thomas, my cousin, had a similar injury or even worse injury previously. And then, I was coming to the end anyway, probably maybe hastened my decision a little.
Yeah, because we talk so often to everybody who comes in who are jockeys or have been jockeys at one point go, yeah, I was grand up until I lost my bottle. And it's such a clear thing that jockeys talk about. It's a real tangible thing in their minds, and for the rest of us it doesn't exist. Like, it's not we can't fill it up, we can't subtract things to it. It either is there or it isn't, and it's almost a spiritual thing. Like, I don't understand how you can get back on a horse after something like that happens when you're in the race in it. But I guess it's the culture is that you're going to get back on that horse for a while anyway.
I don't know how to answer that. I suppose bottle is different for everybody in that you either have it or you don't, or you somewhere along the way something happens and you lose it. Maybe old age you lose it, or old age is in hitting your mid-30s or something, you lose it. And luckily for me I never did. Now, I can't say there weren't specific horses I'd have gone out on where you're going, geez, this is a lovely horse, I love this fella, but the next fella you might be thinking, this is absolutely horrible, I want to get off this straight away.
Yeah.
But that would have been a very rare case. So, yeah, I never did lose my bottle even after the two lads got injured. I was still happy to go out and ride in the race. I think what did play on me a little bit was people asking me, how is Robbie? So while it's very nice for people to be concerned and ask and everything, I would arrive at the races of a Thursday in Clonmel, and by the time I get to the weigh room door, 10 people have asked me, how's Robbie? And I'd get in and getting changed and the whole weigh room would be over asking questions about him, and I go out to the parade ring and the trainer I'm riding for is asking me how is he. So it's not something you can that easily, or at the time I couldn't exactly just shove to the back of my head and forget about, because people keep bringing it up. Actually, there was one of the last rides I had, I'd say, was definitely towards the end, was a horse my dad trained for JP McManus, and his racing manager Frank Berry was there in the parade ring and Dad wasn't there. So like this, 20 people had asked me how was Robbie, and I went into the parade ring and Frank said, well, how is he? So whatever my spiel for the day about how Robbie was, he's fine, he's in the rehab and he's doing this and whatever, I brought this out to Frank, and Frank kind of nodded, and then he said, all right, yeah, and how's the horse? He'd definitely been meaning the horse the entire time, but just when he said it, I was like, oh God, like my head is in the wrong place here.
Yeah, it's fair enough really, isn't it? The impact of an accident like that, again, is obviously something that profoundly changes his life, but has an impact on the family's life in a way that you probably don't understand when it happens first.
Yeah, I think the doctors at, I can't remember which hospital it was, had said to us about how we'll get upset straight away, and he said Robbie will deal with it at different times and different ways and things, and it was actually amazing how accurate they were, that at the time we got extremely upset and he was quite calm about it, and then as we were kind of coming around, he got very upset, and it was actually I suppose a lot of people say it's a bit like a grief or something for the person who gets injured, but he definitely went through things differently than what we did.
Yeah, which it makes perfect sense when you lay it out like that. That
he had to get on with life, and he was left there as he was, and he had to deal with it every minute of the day, I suppose, and then get actually accustomed to the fact that it was real.
Yeah, and I think they say that after a certain amount, you kind of, even though it's not going to change, reality hits you at different times.
Yeah, you always hold out some bit of hope that it is going to change, and you don't feel any residual anger to the fact that this accident happened to your family. And
I think anyone who gets into racing and riding horses knows that that's I won't say a fact of life, but it's a risk you accept. Anyway. Yeah, it's a risk you become a national hunt jockey knowing there are certain risks. And John Thomas always said that he said he held no anger after his accident, but he said if it had happened to him walking across the road and someone knocked him down, he would have. So
yeah, which again I think is the type of thing that, like, I don't know if whoever it is, it might be Ruby, that says that this is the only job where an ambulance follows you the whole way around everywhere. And
two of them even.
Yeah, two of them.
Your family's been particularly unfortunate because John Thomas was he 37, and he was probably nearing retirement when he was injured at Cheltenham. So the McNamara family have had a lot of highs in racing, but would have their fair share of suffering as well from what is a great sport, but ultimately a very dangerous one.
Yeah, no. Let's move on a little bit and talk about some of the races this weekend. We haven't actually had a winner in a long time.
I don't know about that, is it?
Yeah,
make me feel bad now.
Yeah, our Tote Irish Injured Jockeys Charity Fund stands stubbornly, it says here, on 1,485
It says here,
euros.
who wrote that?
JP, I'd say.
Okay.
As we head into another weekend of racing, once again we have a €100 bet courtesy of the Tote to try to add to our tally. Johnny, what have you on for this week? Okay,
so I'm going with Caravation. This is not going to be a big price. Hopefully be 6 to 4, 7 to 4 in the 12.25. I was at Naas 18th of December. I'm hoping that Andy won't mind if I pick up my phone in Carphone Warehouse. It's just been fixed, but it's literally 2 minutes.
Can you
down
drop
the road.
in on the girlfriend for a cup of tea as well?
But
Terms and conditions.
I knew this phone was completely banjoed when Caravation lined up. This is the beauty of being racing. It lined up at the start in Naas, and it was going to make the running, and it was like, it looked a 2-horse race with Caravation as the third in, and I was like, Caravation will definitely be in the first three now. It's gone out in front, and the two favourites relegating Barrington Court might pass it, but it should definitely be in the first three. So I went on my phone, and I literally couldn't do anything on it. I couldn't, it started typing stuff that I didn't put in, and I was like, right, I'm finished. So I knew I had to get my phone changed. But I'll always remember Caravation for that, because I couldn't get the bet on, and of course it finished in the first three. That was a brilliant run, and that should be good enough to win tomorrow's race, especially because the main danger on paper, Great White Shark, Willie Mullins' horses, they're so in and out at the moment. I can't put my finger on it. Some of them are winning, but some of them are running so below par. And I don't know, is it possible to have a yard out of form where some are winning, but some are just like, he said, short price horses run abjectly for the last 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you've something going through a yard now, I don't know if Willie's does or not.
Neither do I, and he may not have.
But if there is something like that, if you have a smaller yard, it's probably the whole yard is going to get it in one go. Whereas if Willie has, I'm guessing 200 horses, they're not, every one of them aren't going to be sick at the same time, or maybe some of them won't get sick at all or whatever. So there is a chance there is something small going through the yard, and some horses are running below par.
Well, Philip Dempsey's are not running at all badly anyway, and Caravation 12.25 at Ferryhouse tomorrow.
Yeah, remember you can enjoy the Tote versus SP best price guarantee on all Irish racing this weekend. Check out thetote.com for more. There's one other story I just wanted to bring up. Curragh trainers John Ox and Patrick Prendergast have joined forces to form a new partnership ahead of the commencement of the new flat turf season at Naas on the 24th of March. Prendergast will not renew his licence at the end of February, and the new operation will continue with Ox as the named trainer. This is Darragh Crahor's story that came in on the wires a little bit earlier on. Now, so this news emerges just a month after Prendergast collected the Flat Achievement of the Year honour at the HRI Awards for his handling of Skitter Scatter. So is this unusual, or is this like a succession plan?
This broke maybe an hour ago. I didn't even have time, not only to, I have barely even read the story or to digest it. Andy probably is in the same boat, but he might understand better. It, to me, would possibly imply that Patrick's thinking of getting the yard that John Ox has down the line. John Ox is one of the more senior trainers who's had a very quiet time of it since Seas the Stars, but I honestly don't know. It's very strange, surprising.
Yes, it's actually, now that you mention it, it's the very first I've heard of it. It could be a possibility that John Ox would have a very good and very big yard, which, since the Aga Khan has left, there probably would be an awful lot of empty stables in there. So from a practicality point of view, it
does make sense at that level. Yeah,
possibly. I'm just trying to guess out.
Yeah,
I hope. Like, flat racing has a kind of an aura of kind of maybe arrogance about it in some ways, particularly in England, where you almost feel as a common person you're slightly divorced from it. But John Ox and Patrick Prendergast are two gents like who are at home in any company, and they make you feel like very much kind of, if you're in their company, you feel warmly appreciated, and you couldn't be too nice for people for something to work out for.
Yeah, okay. A reminder, of course, the Friday Night Racing is brought to you by GoRacing.ie. We might look forward to some of the races this weekend. We had a late change to one of these, so excuse me if I've got them in slightly different order. Start with Ferryhouse on Saturday at 2:10, the Bet Victor Dan Moore Memorial Handicap Chase. Some fairly recognisable names in this one. Duca de Tai, is that the correct pronunciation? Yeah. Kubomania, Kildare, Blazer, Tycoon Prince, 3 Stars, and a few others there.
Yeah, Cubomania is owned by a syndicate that includes Ian Birmingham, who would be the St Patrick's Athletic left back, stalwart, possibly even captain at the moment. And they're getting a great kick out of this horse because he fell in the Drinmore when he may have been in the money, and then he finished second to Tis a Mystery in a big race at Leopardstown over the Christmas. So for I'd say a relatively cheap horse, I think this is what racing really needs to promote. Like, they're getting days out at Fairy House, Leopardstown, Grade 1, running a 100 grand handicap here, and he's going to be third favourite or something like that. Having said that, I'm with Bellamy de Civila here. He's a horse who probably is much better going right-handed. All his wins are right-handed. He looked a little bit right when he was where did he finish? 5th behind Cubomania actually at Leopardstown. I think he'll reverse that form. I think he's a good chance for us in that form. Is it a race you've ever won?
Danmore, I don't think so, no. One who would pop out a little bit for me there is Kildorrery, Ted Walsh's horse, who is he ridden by Ruby?
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So he has been ridden by Michael Stenson, who's a claimer in Ted's and capable rider and has done well on him, but Ruby Walsh is Ruby Walsh, and there's possibly a reason why he's thrown the leg over this time.
Ruby's ridden, I'd say he's literally ridden in 2 handicap chases since he's come back. He's ridden in, I think he may have ridden in the Tri-Town, but very, very few, and that's a real statement of intent.
Yeah, that looks like a pretty good race then. If Bellamy de Civila is at around about 12 to 1 at the moment.
Yeah.
So a big price.
Yeah, I think it has a reasonably each way chance. These are tough races, these competitive handicap chases, but I think going right hand will help.
Okay, so the other races on Saturday that we're looking at are in Warwick and Kempton. We're going to go to Warwick next. So we'll have a look here. It is Birchdale, Tidal Flow, Stony Mountain, Rock Point, Beakstown, Champagne Court and Finn on Bawn. This is the Ballymore Leamington Novices Hurdle.
Yeah, it's an interesting race. Birchdale is going to be favourite here. He's a Jeremy horse that they reckon will be a chaser in time, and he's basically returning to the course and trip that he won over. Now, JP and Nicky Henderson they've an unbelievable team of novices this season, and Birchdale will be one of them. Champ is another one, and Rathill was, or at least he was until he...
And the zeros there, that means it's the first race of the season for them, or they didn't finish?
Birchdale...
See, then the form 611-0. The form over the...
So that's the weight, 11
That's their
stone.
age and their weight, so it's a 6-year-old carrying 11 stone.
So
okay.
So the form, he's basically won a point to point, and being
as it says at the top.
Yeah, being by Jeremy, we'll that never happens.
We'll fix that in post.
Being by Jeremy, he stays very well considering he's by Jeremy. A lot of the Jeremy horse would have a fair bit of pace. Now, Tidal Flow, interesting enough, he beat Downtown Getaway, who's very well regarded Henderson horse last time out. Now, I think it was inexperience that cost Downtown Getaway, but the Henderson yard should have a good idea what's needed to beat Tidal Flow, who's very, very hardy. I'm going to go with Birchdale, but I wouldn't be backing him at a sharp price. I think it's quite a deep race. And Battle Over Doyen could well be facing one or two of these in Cheltenham come March, and this will give us a better idea of how good the British horses are, I think.
Would there be a little bit of worry for you, the Henderson horses? They're running a bit like Willie Mullins. There's the odd one.
Yeah, like Rathill to name, but I suppose so. Like it was that sort of Christmas as well. I don't know if his yard isn't quite the kind of maybe the lopsided form that Willie's are, but it would at a short price. I could see him drifting, but I think they really, really rate the horse.
Are you sending horses to England at the moment and trying to...
We very rarely do. I suppose the main reasons Irish trainers go to England are for the worst of races and the best of races. So you'll go to the big festivals and you'll go to the north of England maybe to try and pick up a race with a horse that can't win here.
Okay.
So potentially down the road we could have a few that aren't getting there here and might go to the north of England. At the moment, it doesn't look like we've too much for the likes of Cheltenham. We might have one horse maybe for entry.
He mentions the north of England as well. I remember working in Satanta back in the day, and we got word that there was a trainer, the cabin trainer, was going to Musselburgh.
Shane Donoghue.
Shane Donoghue was going to Musselburgh with 4 horses, I think, and you were riding possibly all of them. How many of them won? At least
4 of them won, yeah.
The 4 of them. So I remember whatever the word was like, back to and you looked the best jockey of all time that day because the horses were so well and all won. That's a hell of it. Like to go to Musselburgh, 4 horses for a small yard, and Andy to go over there. What was that, like 15 years ago now, maybe?
14 years ago.
Do you remember any of the names?
They were actually. It was the first time I ever rode for Shane Donoghue. And
how did that happen then? That's mad, like.
So there's a funny rule in England. To lose your claim, it's more winners than in Ireland. And also, if you have a claim at the start of a season, you're considered a conditional jockey and qualified to ride in the conditional jockeys races for the rest of the year. So fair play to Shane Donoghue. He copped that I was still qualified. I'd say I didn't.
Was it conditionals?
But one of the
Right,
races, was
right.
condition, and this was Not Today, Sir, was his name,
Right.
and he was the best horse, and they were going for a gamble on this. Shane Copt, I was still qualified to ride in the race, so I went to ride him basically, and the rest of them I don't think were really all that fancied, but the first one won, and then I'd say Not Today, Sir was the next one. Not Today, Sir won by half the track. He was a lovely horse. He won a good few races after, and then there was an older horse in a handicap chase, and he taught me I'd
won the
jump
bumper
out
as well,
and make
did
the
you?
run. And yeah, won the bumper and a filly as well. And
What a day, like.
I never heard of the other three again.
Yeah.
Not Today, Sir was a good horse.
A good
All
night that
relate
night?
to Not Today, Sir.
I'd say I probably got an early flight home from Edinburgh, I'd say, and it was as much as I did, but it was good fun, yeah.
Yeah, they're the days you live for, all right. Kempton on Saturday is the Unibet Lanzarote Handicap Hurdle. Here we're looking at Cloudgate, Lord Napier, Darling Maltai, Du Pretender.
Yeah, he's my Du Pretender, is my, I doubt he'll be pronounced like that now, but he is my selection in this race, which is horribly a 15-runner race, which means it's not a good betting each way race, but some of the bookies might give you 4 places, but this horse looks like he needs to go back right-handed. He ran at Cheltenham the last day, and he just hung after travelling well. His form actually ties into the Leamington race, because a couple of horses in that have run in races that he's run in. In fact, he beat one of them earlier on in the season. I still think he's a bit more to offer, and he would be a tentative enough pick again for the aforementioned Nicky Henderson. So you'd be hoping Andy's wrong that the horses might be a little bit in and out, but they do look to be a little bit in and out at the moment.
And Andy, do you have to pay attention to how all these horses are shaken out and how all these races are running, so that if you do want to send a horse over to England, that you can kind of decide which one is going to be the right race to enter them in? That's the other thing that I'm always like, you have a million horses and a million different places they can go, and picking the right one is a massive skill, surely.
I suppose you can't factor in every horse and be aware of every horse's form in England as the odd possible day you might want to go over. I think more what that might mean in terms of his race placing. So there's probably more of a case of you go through the calendar and you're entering in horses, try and find the most suitable race for a horse, and then try and be aware of what the competition might be. Yeah. So really, it's very hard to tell often until you enter in a race.
Right.
So sometimes you might be entering in races and not running, but you just have to pay whatever the entry fee is and take a chance that it might be a weak race. And sometimes you might enter a horse 3 or 4 times and the owner might be giving out that you've wasted a few £100 on him. But the odd day then you could enter in a listed race and it might be an ordinary race and you can go and so it'll all work out for you.
Yeah, if you haven't bought the ticket, you can't get in. Yeah. All right, fair enough. So on to Sunday, Punchestown. So here we are. The 1:15 is the total event rental novice chase, and here there are some that we're interested in that we've seen a bit. A Plus Tard is the favourite at 11-4. Jets, Gundigger, Winter Escape, Blow by Blow, Ben Dundee, and Cubo Mania also entered in this.
Yeah, it's very tough, this race. At least there are 9 runners in it, so you've a reasonable each way play in the race. Cubo Mania probably won't run, presuming that he runs
the day before.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the anomalies of racing that probably shouldn't be saying this, but if you have a horse declared 2 days in a row, you do have to actually have a legitimate excuse for him not running, and actually running the day before is not in itself a legitimate excuse to scratch a horse.
Yeah.
So he somehow has to develop a little bit of tiredness. Or what would you do?
Very easy.
We're on a HRI sponsored show here now.
Yeah, the horse pulls out a little bit stiff the next morning. That's enough of a reason not to run him. Probably more the difficulty is he's declared Saturday and Sunday. If you think Sunday is an easier race, it's very hard to pull him out Saturday and then run him on Sunday.
Again, this is a HRI sponsored show.
But, unless he gets lost in transit or something like that.
Very hard to get to.
Ben Dundee had a horrible fall the last day at Leopardstown in the race that Delta Work won. That was obviously a grade 1, and he's very interesting. The big race Sunday is a Moscow Flyer. That's at 2:50. And I think this race would be stronger if the ground were softer. So 6 runners in it. Doesn't look a great renewal, being honest. Swordsman, who's a full brother to Battle Over Dying, is a tentative pick. And you look at the winners of this race: Kicking King, Justified, Mikkel Dagenay, Vautour, Duvan, Min, Get a Bird. Some very, very, for a grade 2, very, very good winners of the race. I don't know if you ever won this race, did you?
Maybe actually my very first season riding.
Doesn't show up on the record here, is it?
What happened, Felix Desir?
Gone beyond the...
Yeah.
What happened?
Felix Desir was a big talking horse last year. He might still...
We were all over it.
Yeah, I ended up backing for the Cheltenham bumper. He was way too keen, and that's been a problem for him this year. Now, in fairness to him at Limerick the last day, he went over 2.5, and for most of the race it looked like he did enough of a lead on Salsaretta to hold on. But she picked him up. It was a brilliant ride by Ruby. I think there's no better man to basically just wait when other jockeys would panic, and it looked like this horse had too much to do, but ended up winning by 3.5 lengths because he just had to judge. And he probably, I think with Ruby, he doesn't ask the horse if the horse is going to be out of its comfort zone. So whether Ruby thinks he's going to catch the horse in front or not, he's going to keep the horse within its comfort zone for as long as he can.
Yeah, well, Ruby B, he's probably the best rider there is on pace, and so there is a thing that the fastest way to run a race is by doing an even pace the whole way. So Ruby is very conscious of that, and he doesn't want to quicken up for the 3 furlongs out too much to, not get home. So everything with Ruby is even. So if he feels that the jockey in front is going a bit too quick, he's quite content and has enough confidence in himself to just leave them off and let them go. And that if they are going too quick, they'll pay for that.
So that's his strategy.
It's very simple. It's just the most optimum way to win the most optimum way to get your best time in a race is to go an even pace, because horses slow down towards the end of races,
because of tiredness.
Yeah, it's all very well good saying that that's a good strategy, but you have to be aware of what the right pace is.
Yeah.
So you have to
and
be
how
as
the
good
race is being run as well.
You have to be as good a judge of pace as Ruby is to tell they're actually going too fast. So it can look to a bystander like as if you've left somebody off 10 lengths, and if they beat you, they'll say, what were you doing? You left them with a free lead. But if you have the ability and the confidence to say that person's going too fast, I'm going to leave them go.
Did you have that as a jockey?
There would have been times you'd have been in races and you'd have said, yeah, this is going too fast, but probably it depends who you're riding for as well. They don't like to see that happen. I would say I'd have been guilty a bit of maybe not having enough confidence to do it enough, maybe, and you might have kind of tagged along, left them off a little bit. There are times you'd have seen Ruby. I remember the Bobby Joe chase there a couple of years ago. A couple of riders took each other on about 5 out, and Ruby just left them go. And there's one stage he's sitting nice and happy on the bridle, 15 lengths off them, and the 2 in front stop, and he just gets them jumping the last and wins well. And he has that clock and that confidence in himself to do that.
That's the thing with Mulzam tonight. The other jockeys should definitely not take him on because they're going to screw each other over. But Felix Desir, I wouldn't give up.
But they don't know
that. But Jig and Sound I think they might have had 9 entries in this, but they've 3 of the 6 runners, and Swordsman is definitely a horse who's been a bit unheralded, because he was only 6th in his bumper, then he was 2nd when a faller fell in front of him in the maiden hurdle. But he was very impressive the last day in a good race, and it's just a tricky race. I think he's a reasonable chance. My actual nap on Sunday, which I might have given as kind of the bet, but because you're putting me under pressure, as you said, it's been like this for a while, which is a bit of a dig.
Stubbornly.
Citizen Al for the O'Sullivan team in the 350. Eugene and Maxine. Eugene Mutrain near Mallow, would it be? Cork direction anyway. And Maxine Maxine is not riding it, actually. It's Mr. M.J.M. O'Sullivan. So that rider, actually, I read that as Maxine, who would be Eugene's daughter. I think she might be injured at the moment, actually. So that's obviously, that must be a brother. Oh, I'm not actually familiar with that jockey, but I think he may have ridden Citizen Al the last day. He did give it a grand ride in Limerick when she was completely unsuited by the trip, and she's stepping up 2.5 miles, and I think she could be about 10-1 in a bang average race.
All right, good stuff. Andy, thanks very much for joining us. Best of luck with the rest of the season.
And Dundalk in particular.
Enjoy your car journey to Dundalk tonight and the
Carphone Warehouse.
Pit stop in Carphone Warehouse. Friday Night Racing brought to you by GrowRacing.ie. You can check the rest of it out on YouTube if you missed any of it. YouTube.com/Off the Ball. And if you're listening on the radio, we'll be right back after these.
Off the Ball.
And they're off. Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at GoRacing.ie.